I get asked that question all the time, what is the secret? And I just really don't know.
There was a lot of fear that we were going to get forgotten, just around the corner, and that we just had to do everything.
We created something from nothing, and there's a drive to keep that going.
You reach these points creatively in whatever it is you're doing, and you have to, you have to set the ante a little higher every time. Otherwise, there's no point.
Things get tense. Dream on, dream on. I know you can't be, 'cause it's no good. You stumble in my footsteps. Words are very unnecessary. Stranger, nobody knows me as well as you do. Master and servant, you and I should get along so openly. Grabbing hands, and the times change.
Capital Radio in London were who really played it, and the feeling of the first hearing a song on the radio, it's the weirdest feeling.
We were doing a TV show, and it was one of the very first TV shows we were doing up in I think it was Newcastle actually, and we heard it on the car driving to the station, and we just couldn't believe we were hearing our own record on the radio.
New life, operating, generating, new life, new life.
We sort of entered the charts, in the sort of 50s or whatever, and that was amazing, and #1 indie record of the year. It was just all fantastic, really.
We've always looked at things pessimistically, so it was especially nice the way it moved up the charts, because things just don't happen like that anymore.
Circulating, new life, operating, generating, new life, new life.
I remember we went to Total Pops by train from Basildon with our suitcases, with our Simpson, and they wouldn't let us in to BBC television centres because we didn't have a limo. They didn't believe we were a group.
When I first heard Just Can't Get Enough, I thought it was absolute monstrous record. Fantastic, I love it. I absolutely love it. So Just Can't Get Enough to me was an obvious #1 record. It was going to be all over the radio. That's it, and the album's going to come out and go straight to #1. And, we virtually did that.
It was very much geared into the clubs we were going to, a need to want to make music that used electronics but that you could dance to and sing along to.
I just can't get enough. I just can't get enough. Every time I think of you.
I saw that video recently on somewhere we were. I was just like, wow.
It's getting hotter, it's a burning love, and I just can't seem to get enough.
We always felt we were a little bit different, but I didn't realise how poppy we were.
I felt vindicated when I put out Just Can't Get Enough, and it didn't sell. But the people that heard it, at Hurrahs or Danceteria or wherever, they all fucking loved it. And I knew that I had really signed a great, great band.
Get enough. I just can't get enough. I just can't get enough.
See You, which was the first single from Broken Frame, Martin's first single that he had written, was probably more poppy than the singles from Beat and Spell in a way, and very much a sort of poppy love song.
When I try not to hold you and I try not to kiss you, and I won't even touch you, all I wanna do is see you.
remember hearing See You, because I'd heard that, again, that was one of the songs that Martin had written before, and I thought it was really, really good. Because it was, the original version wasn't like that at all, with the way they'd made it into an electronic semi-dance record. I thought that was really clever.
To get a band on an independent label into the charts, that was still an achievement, especially a band that kind of was, you know, in inverted commas, a pop band.
We were sort of torn between being a sort of a pop band on smash hits and being sort of a more cooler alternative band.
Well, I know 5 years is a long time, and the times change.
It's all part of a process where we were starting to grow up.
Something that comes through on that record is a genuine enthusiasm and excitement.
I think it was our first combined effort, including Alan, that sounded like sort of Depeche Mode sound was starting to emerge.
Everything Counts was great because it was a hit single. In Germany, I think we had #1 with that for weeks, and everyone in Germany loved Depeche Mode, so it felt like, you know, we were on top of the world, really.
The turning point of a career in Korea, being insincere.
I wouldn't say it was completely obvious that it was going to be a big hit, but I think as we recorded it, we realised it was quite strong and, you know, lyrically a bit of a move forward, and it was received very well, you know, probably better than perhaps we expected it to be.
The music was getting darker, and it was taking more chances. It didn't want to just, you know, appeal to a pop mentality in an easy way.
People Are People was made first, wasn't it? Before we even went, I mean, that was clear, that stood out. Everyone just thought, that is amazing. As a piece of, you know, mid-80s pop.
People are people, so why should it be? You and I should get along so often.
We went to Hansa to record it, and we arrived the night before the recording was supposed to start, and we set everything up in the studio. We just basically pressed play and just ran it, and everybody sang along, and it just seemed like it all sounded great, even before we'd recorded it properly.
So we're different colours, and we're different breeds, and different people have different needs. It's obvious you hate me, though I've done nothing wrong. I've never even met you, so what could I have done?
People Are People was a record that, as soon as we went to radio, was an instant addition to everyone's programme. The video for that was a great video, and the video went on to everything.
People Are People hit a tone with the public. It addressed racism, sexism, acceptance of one another. And I think that it was something that also appealed to the mainstream pop radio programmers at that time, too.
It's a lot. 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 Like life.
I suppose there's a bit of a reaction after the success of People Are People. Oh, we're going too poppy, Dan, you know, we've got to be careful, which is good, which is correct, you know. We did go out of our way to make Master and Servant sound kind of noisy and a bit more difficult. So I don't think we were vindicated. I think we were just really pleased that the fans had accepted it. I think it was an important moment in their career.
Martin was living in Berlin, we were going to like leather clubs and staying out late and getting a bit pervy and everything, Master and Servant, if you like, and it's like a pop interpretation of that.
being subversive, I think, is quite appealing, and there's a degree of that in Master and Servant, and the fact that you can basically get away with anything if you give it a good tune. I think there was always an idea that Shake the Disease could somehow appear on the album, but the timing was all wrong.
There'd been a gap and we needed a single. I mean, Martin had a song and we didn't really want to wait for the next record, and we didn't want to rush the next record.
Here is a plea from my heart to you. Nobody knows me as well as you do. You know how hard it is for me to shake the disease that takes hold of my tongue in situations like these.
That song was particularly hard to record. I don't know why. I just remember having a really hard time getting the vocals right on that record.
You know, I particularly like that track. You know, we've been playing that one acoustically live on this tour, and it's one of my favourites.
Understand me.
Strangelove was a collection of lots of little ideas, none of which were quite working together. It had to be wrestled into shape.
Strange love, strange eyes and strange love, strange love.
The groove of it was quite difficult because there were lots of different little sounds, and I think I wasn't that keen on it being that complicated.
Because Daniel likes to have his little singles babies anyway, we said to him, well, why don't you take it away and do a mix? And he actually simplified the bass line, I think, and a few other parts. Basically, he updated the whole thing for us.
Strangelove, to me, is probably the most significant track that this band has had in terms of breaking in America.
Strangelove was a huge New York record. That was the first record of Depeche Mode, even stronger than Everything Counts, that put them into the real mainstream here in America.
Some tracks come together very easily. Never Let Me Down, case in point. Absolutely came together. Everything you did worked.
The guitar intro actually was an accident because it was, again, it's just down to the sequences we were using in those days. We had that guitar was sampled and ran on the counting over the start of the track where it wasn't supposed to be, and we just all went, oh, that's just great.
I'm taking a ride with my best friend.
So that was a happy accident, and I just always liked the track, and I was really pleased with the way it turned out.
Well, Never Let Me Down, obviously, was a big song for us, and still is, you know, live.
Never Let Me Down Again was a standout track, and it was especially effective when we played live. And you know, Dave often says that, you know, he doesn't know how he came up with the idea when we were playing at the Rose Bowl, but he just started like waving his arms in the air, and you know, the whole crowd just in unison started doing it back.
They were certainly the biggest UK act, if not one of the biggest bands in America at that time.
They were being seen, I think, by everyone as the new wave of British bands that were going to go and attack America.
Personal Jesus was always going to be the first single. It stood out head and shoulders. Here's Depeche Mode, but not as you know them.
We tend to, with the first single, put ourselves out there, you know, as making a sort of statement.
We felt that it was a potential single, although we were very unsure about it because of the lyrical content. We were just, worried that, especially in America, it would be just not played on the radio.
It had a very long 12-inch life before it was a sort of radio single. And so it was just building and building over a 6-month period, and somehow the timing of that happened to be perfect.
And that became hugely successful, especially in America. I think it ended up selling 1 million copies or something, which was huge. And nowadays, it's unheard of.
The album wasn't out, so the only thing you could buy was this 12-inch of Personal Jesus. It was a huge selling track for that reason, because it was the only thing that would satisfy the fan appetite.
It laid a foundation that we had no idea what was about to happen.
Words like violence break the silence, come crashing into my little world.
Enjoy the Silence, when we had that first meeting, was this very, very slow ballad.
Martin had come up with a demo that was really just a harmonium or an organ and voice. And I think it was clear to everyone this was a good melody. And so I suggested, look, I've got this sort of vague idea about making it a fast, almost dance track. What do you think?
The song was called Enjoy the Silence, and, that seemed to be in total contrast with a disco track. Once the track was up and the basic chords were in, they got me to write a guitar riff over the top of it. It all started to have a really good atmosphere, and I think that was one of the few times that we felt that we actually might have a hit on our hands, and we were actually optimistic about it.
To be broken, feelings are intense.
Everything up to, Personal Jesus, leading into Enjoy the Silence, to the album, and then the tour was perfect.
All ever wanted, all ever needed is here in my arms. Words are very unnecessary, they can only do harm.
It was always a bit rocky because Martin always had the guitar riff from the demo stage, and then it just got bigger really as we went in the studio.
I think I Feel You became a lot darker and a bit more trashier, for the better.
We just felt that it was so different atmospherically to anything that we'd put out before, and very different from anything that had come out on Violator.
You take me there, you take me where the kingdom comes.
I Feel You went to #1 on the alternative charts and stayed there for weeks. I mean, I think that it was Depeche Mode's, first #1 on the Billboard alternative chart, if I'm not mistaken, and it stayed there for a long time.
It's just the dawning of paradise.
When we listened to the original set of Martin's demos, there was some very, very strong songs. I Feel You, Walking My Shoes, which everybody sort of felt was like one of the best songs Martin had ever written.
I would say about the things that put me through, the pain I've been subjected to, but the Lord himself, oh, with blood.
I remember we had a lot of trouble because the the verse was very similar to the bridge, and it was, the way it works on the record is fine, but it took us a while to get that to work.
Now I'm not looking for absolution.
The singles were difficult for radio, but by then we were at the point of this is a big band and you've got to play it and you can't not play it.
So the demand for the band was still massive. I mean, this was the follow-up record and tour to what had been a massive, international record.
You stumbled in my footsteps. Keep the same appointments I kept. If you try walking in my shoes, if you try walking in my shoes.
I mean, when I first heard the demo, I remember thinking that is classic mode, and now I understand, what classic mode means.
Take my time. I have all the time in the world to make you mine. It is written in the stars above.
We charted the first three singles, Barrel of a Gun, It's No Good at Home, straight to the #1 in the Italian sales chart.
It's No Good was a safe bet as a first single, but I think it worked out very well because Barrel of a Gun was quite well received, and then we were able to go with It's No Good as a second single.
Don't say you want me, don't say you need me, don't say you love me. It's understood, don't say you're happy.
I think it was just nice that we managed to achieve that without Alan. Obviously, it's a big unknown if you start working in a very different way without one of your key elements. I think that we were all really pleased that we still managed to achieve so much.
Dream On was, we felt, typical Depeche. We thought the vibe, you'd have thought I Feel Love was more commercial than Dream On.
But, you just kind of have to go with your gut with that stuff.
It's just always good for us to release something that's different, especially as a first single from each album.
Everybody knew quite early on that was going to be the single, and that was the key track. So I remember that one, and that one was quite well developed. I mean, I think still that the guitar riff that's on it is from the original demo.
Hey, you pale and sickly child, you're deaf and living reconciled, been walking home a crooked mile.
Dream On was just very different for us again. It was sort of like fairly acoustic and almost 70s sounding to me, in some sort of odd way, with the harmonies and stuff.
Dream On was the perfect introduction for an album like this. Dream On was presenting the intimate or the delicate side of the Depeche Mode music.
Ready, pain is waiting, trying to do its educating.
Precious changed very little from the demo. Basically, we made the song work with Dave's voice because Martin's demo was spot on, and it was a very personal song to Martin, that one.
Precious and fragile things need special handling.
I don't think there was any real even discussion about it particularly. It seemed very obvious from the start that should be the first single.
They work together really well, I think. The fact that you've got what is essentially a very pretty pop song with quite shockingly personal lyrics on it.
A lot of our songs do deal with subjects that are not exactly typical pop themes. Precious in particular, for me, is a song about my children because I'm in the middle of a divorce at the moment, and it's about them, what they must be going through.
Things get damaged, things get broken. I thought we'd manage, but words left unspoken, left us so brittle. There was so little left to give. Where were you when I fell from grace?
was always a fairly obvious single. It was kind of up-tempo, had a really catchy hook, lyrically strong. I think it's good that we had one of Dave's songs as a single, because I think, you know, that fully represents the record, you know.
Christian Eigner plays drums in the band, and Andrew Philpott, who's done a lot of programming in the past. We worked together in my little studio in New York and sort of bashed these ideas around. I don't sit down and sort of start a song from here and finish it here and then go, oh, that was good, okay, great, there's one in the bag. I wouldn't call it a Dave Garn track, but it's that other person.
I think Dave was quite excited by the fact that Martin was going to be working on his songs. When you got one of the best songwriters in the world helping you on your songs, that's a pretty good thing, pretty good vibe.
I think it came from a phrase somebody said to him when he was sort of really in a bit of a state, and somebody told him to suffer well. Martyr was a really interesting one. Like Precious, it's quite a vintage Depeche song.
I've been a martyr for love, and I will die in the flames as I draw my last breath, as I'm closing on death. I will call out your name.
We all had confidence in the track as it being a good enough track to be used for something. And it was definitely a single contender as well for Playing the Angel. So it was quite an odd decision to say, well, actually, this isn't going to go on the record.
It was a great track, but there was a balance on the record in it, and that threw it slightly off balance.
I knew what I was letting myself in for. I knew that I could never even the score.
I like to quote that Dave said once. He said that I'd made a 25-year career out of one subject. There might be two. Basically, he's right.
The challenge has to be in the work, because it's no longer about anything else.
We realised that still as popular as we was in 1981, it's a great feeling and feel very privileged.
Must be nice.
Sound like one of the royal family.
I've been a martyr for love, touch it every hour. From the day I was born, I've been moved like a ball by the greatest of powers. I knew that I would have to suffer in vain, aware that I would never handle the pain. I've been a martyr for love. I've been a martyr for love. I've been a martyr for love. I've been a martyr for love.